Welcome to the Invincible Innovation Show, the podcast for changemakers. Each week, I talk to the most fascinating entrepreneurs and innovation leaders about innovation, strategy, and design. Hey, everyone. Today, we're going to talk about making better business decisions. It's going to be really exciting. Welcome to Invincible Innovation Live Show. I'm so glad that you're here. I'm Mazor, Kario, product innovation and value creation expert, and I'll be your host. And I have a very special guest, Raanan. Hi, Raanan. Raanan Keren, decision making and strategy expert. How are you? You hear me well? We have some technical issues, I see. Do you hear me well? So until I hear Raanan, I'll tell you we're live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook, and you're so invited to join the discussion and ask questions. And I hope that we'll see Raanan really soon. Like something with the connection is stuck.
Hi.
Hey,
I'm back.
I'm so glad that you're
yes,
here.
Of course, the internet decided to crash immediately.
Of course. I hope that you know the internet said it's like that's what we said, and now you're gonna work. So I'm so happy to see you here. We had a discussion a few weeks back, and I know it's going to be really interesting and exciting. And I'm going to start with a very big question about decision making. What's the biggest mistake leaders do while making decisions?
Wow, this is a very tough question. I think one of the major issues or one of the most important things for leaders is I think it's to combine the rational thinking and their intuition. And I think what leaders tends to do is either they are highly intuitional and they just go for their intuition and make a decision from from the guts, or the other side, they are highly rational, which is most of let's say startups, high-tech leaders, and then they dwell on the decision too long. Sometimes they need to think about it and rational it, and I think the big, and it's very hard to do, okay? And I think the biggest is how to combine it, how to do the rational thinking, have the reasoning, and understand everything that you do, while keeping your intuition in place and say, okay, if it feels good in the guts, then it should be the right decision.
But you know, it's so hard, even for me. I'm not like any company leader, just for myself. And when I think about it, it's like when you have a gut feeling, you don't want to rationalize it, because sometimes it's like I'm trying to think about something that I know that it's not for me, or it's not good for what I think. But if you're taking all the considerations, it makes sense. So it's very hard to have both, I guess. And I guess that most of them, it's much easier just to analyze and to think rationally and get the numbers and then decide.
Yes. First of all, of course, you're right, and it's hard. And I think there are two solutions for that. The first solution is have the right people around you, have the right people to consult with, have the right people to talk to. If you are rationalization person, then have some intuitive person around you in your team, and appreciate their advice and discuss it with them. And the opposite, if you know you're a very gut feeling decision maker, again, have around you, I don't know, the CFO of the company, which usually takes this role, or other people around you that they will help you with those kind of decisions. I think that's the first thing. And the second thing is, and it's very, very important, it's to understand that if you make a decision that is, you were able to rationalize it, but you're not feeling good with it, it will be very, very hard for you to execute it. It will be very, very hard for you to convey the message to your people why you should execute it. So I think it should be a combination, and you should feel it in the gut. And if you don't feel in the gut it's the right thing to do, then it might not be the right thing to do. Um,
Yeah, it
and I
makes
would
sense.
say you have to remember that in the end, there is no right or correct answer for most business decisions we make. Okay, usually, no, the spectrum is wider. There are a lot of decisions you can make. You will never know it was the right decision, what was the wrong decision. So it has to be a combination of something you can explain to yourself rationally, but also you believe in.
Yeah. I guess that managers, especially company leaders, they have to decide on a lot of things per day, right? They have lots
Yeah.
of decisions. Sometimes it's a bigger decision for a company, sometimes less, but they need to be fast, at least like to be a decision maker in a sense requires from you just to take that's more important, less important. Let's just cut this chase and do something.
Yes.
And I think it's like a is it like a character is something that you learn to be a decision maker. There are many people. I have a friend that she never like it takes years until she decides what's to wear or what to buy in the mall, right? So you need to be this kind of a person who's doing that, right?
Yes, yes. First of all, it's a character. There are people who are there's a phenomenon called decision deterrence. Okay, there are a lot of people who don't like to make decision. They don't like the pressure. They don't like the feeling. They overthink of what will happen if I make this decision or that decision. So again, I think it's you have to know yourself. Now you get better with it. I can tell you that it's something you can practice. And as much you make, as many decisions that you will make, you will learn to make better decisions and probably faster decisions. Okay, because a lot of decisions are day-to-day decisions. A lot of the decisions we don't think about them, or we don't think too much about them, and it's okay. Okay, every leader makes sometimes 100 decisions per day. Some of them are very easy and very fast, and some of them he needs to think it through.
Right.
And one of the I think what makes a good leader is to understand which decisions could be very, very important, could have long-term implications that you have to think them through, and what decisions you don't have.
Yeah. Is it like connected to where you live, to the country maybe? You know, like when I work with people from Europe, I feel like they have this phase like analysis paralysis. They always overthink. And when I work with Israelis, I always feel that they're like much more like doers than thinkers, or less strategy, more tactics.
Yes, first of all, there is a cultural difference, and there are many personality differences, okay, between people generally. And if we look at that culturally, so again, we look at it a lot of more reflective people versus intuitive people. And generally, you can say about Israelis that they are more intuitive people. Okay, they will make a decision from the gut. They will say they believe in something, but they will sometimes not think it through. And if we go to Europe, then you will meet more reflective people. Okay, they will reflect more on their decision. They will want to to think it through a little bit longer. And again, if you go to the Far East, you will see different types of decision making, different way of thinking of decision making.
And I know that you are doing your PhD. We're going to talk about it really soon about.
Yes.
But is there like any about decision making? Is there like any researching like there are better decision makers in Europe or
Uh,
in Israel?
It's very, very hard to tell because I think, it's like the movie Revolving Doors. Once you make a
Yeah,
decision, and so in many, many points in life, you will make a decision, unless it will be a colossal failure. You will never know if that was the right decision or the wrong decision. Okay, you always hear about stories of missing like VCs talking about they invest in big investment they missed. Okay, we
yeah,
sat with the founders of Google and we decided it's not a good idea.
yeah,
Um, and again, if you look at a VC person, a VC principal who sees, I don't know, hundreds of presentations per month, especially these days. So, and he makes many decisions. So some of them will be wrong and some of them will be right. Sometimes he will bet on the right unicorn, and his investment decision will be a very, very correct one. And sometimes he will lose. most of the times you will not know it exactly,
Mm,
because it's very hard for us to say, okay, if we would have done that, what would have happened.
right. So could you give me an example of a good and a bad decision-making process and the result?
So I think let's start with the good. It will be easier. A good decision making process will be one that first of all you are able to define the problem, and you're able to define the decision you're about to make. I think to structurize it always helps. Okay, so okay, this is my problem. Okay, let's say we are contemplating which strategy to build for our company, which market to focus on. Okay, we have a startup, we have a new idea, and the market is huge, and we have to focus. And we have to decide which market we're going to be focused. We're going to go communication, health, or for example, and you need to make a decision. So first of all, you have to to make a structure. Okay, this is the decision I'm about to make, which the industry we are going to focus in. This is the time frame. Okay, and this is also important. I think sometimes it will be very, very helpful for decision makers to give themselves a time frame. Say, okay, in 2 weeks we are going to make a decision. In the board meeting in 2 weeks, we are going to present the options and we're going to make a decision. And I think it helps everybody to know what are we thinking about, how long do we have to think, and how are we going to make it. So structure is very, very important. And I think the third pillar of the structure is to make a decision of who you're going to consult with, who you're going to talk with. Because most decisions, especially important ones, you don't want to make a decision on your own. Okay, generally, the crowd wisdom is usually a right concept, so you don't have to consult with all the employees of the company or with all the people you know around you, but you have to decide which people from your team you're going to consult with and you're going to discuss with, and they're going to help you make the decision. So I think the good part or the important part is to give it a structure. And I think the bad part or bad decision making is that there are a lot of times that you already made a decision and then you just rationalize it. Okay, you just have to. Okay, you already decided what you're going to do. Maybe it's a right decision, maybe it's a wrong decision. I don't know. But if you've already decided and then you just do a process for the sake of the process and you're just rationalizing, you are losing a lot doing it. Okay.
Yeah.
You don't give yourself a true, and it's especially very, very important in terms of innovation. Okay. We'll talk about innovation probably.
Yeah.
If you want to innovate, then you have to come open-minded. It's very, very hard if you already made a decision.
Yeah. Especially when there's risk involved. Because in innovation you have risk, something that you've never done, and you don't know if you'll succeed in it. Sometimes you fail. You have more failure than success in innovation, right?
Yes.
Because it's a new thing.
Yeah.
And I think that many leaders and I would say like CEOs and C-level, they know the importance, but they tend not to decide or decide something very, very small, which is not really innovative. And then because they're doing something very small, they would say, okay, it doesn't get us to any results because it's sometimes very long term, right?
Yes, it didn't work. Okay, you don't give it a long enough. So first of all, decision making is about risk and it's about courage. And it's very hard, like you said, because especially with innovation, there is risk, there's a high level of risk, and you need to have the right leadership traits and the right courage to make those decisions. And I think that's a very important thing in decision making. And I think again, it goes back to the structure. If you're doing a right process, you should, as a leader, decide before that when you're treating with innovation, you will be more a risk taker than, let's say, risk averse. Okay. And when we make financial decisions about the future of the company, we should be more risk averse than risk taker. And
so, although innovation is kind of a financial long-term decision, Because if you invest
Yes,
right now in something, it will have like, it will be fruitful maybe a years from now, maybe
yes,
when you'll
yes, but
not be CEO anymore.
yes, yes. So again, it goes back to the long-term vision.
Right.
And again, in decision making, it's another hard thing to do, is to decide to how long do you see your decision making process. Okay, and for CEOs it's very very hard, especially these days when everybody looks at your result on a month to month basis or a quarterly basis, and especially if you're already did your IPO, or so you're a public company, so every month people are looking at you, and every announcement to the stock exchange is
Yeah.
important. So it's very very hard.
Yeah, you know what that reminds me when you say like a big company and a CEO. It reminds me the Mark Zuckerberg thing, that they found that there is bad implications of social media, of Instagram and so on teens, and
Yes,
they had an option to change the algorithm in order to make it less impactful
yes,
in that sense. And he decided not to do it, and I guess it's related to the fact that he needs to show results by month, and this could impact the results, right?
yes, yes. Again, it's you have Facebook is, we say cash cow. So Facebook is making a lot of cash right now, and it will be very hard for them to change, to make changes that might hurt them in the long term. And and every public company faces it. If we talked about Facebook, then the opposite side, sometimes it's, if you look at Amazon strategy for long term, they were losing money, or their profitability percentage was very very low. And to say in favor of Jeff Bezos, that he didn't let go. He didn't let the market pressure him, investing in more. If we go 10 years ago, Amazon was a online shopping company. They were bleeding money over the cloud business, and Jeff Bezos said, no, this is the future. And if you look now at their profitability, or where do they make money from, it's mainly from Amazon Web Services and AWS, and less from the shopping.
Yeah. But let's go back to Mark Zuckerberg. I want to ask you, because you work with
Yes,
leaders, and sometimes a decision is a good decision. It's a good thing to do, right? If you're taking into consideration that it's impacting teens, and they are doing more like suicide, and they're in depression.
yes.
So he knows that that's a good decision. Still, he cannot make it, or he doesn't have a good. I don't know
What
if
is
he
a
cannot
so
make
so
it
so
like
so what is a good decision? That's the what you're saying right now. Good, you're saying it's a socially right, it's a morally right decision.
right.
I can argue. I don't argue with you. I'm in your opinion
No, but
generally,
yeah,
but I can argue that Mark Zuckerberg can say, my duty is to the shareholders of Facebook, and it's not for the teenager who, again, it's horrible to say it. My duty is not for the teenager who's about to make suicide. My duty is for the shareholders, and to make money for the shareholders. And if you go to the, let's say, very very basic capitalist American system that says that your company exists only to make profit for the shareholders, to maximize the return for the shareholders, then he's doing the right thing. He's making a good decision. Maybe he's making a good decision. Again, we can talk about short term versus long term.
yeah,
In the short term, he's probably making the good decision for his company. Maybe in the long term, he will lose. That's one thing. And secondly, I think what we have seen over the last few years is a lot more discussion about what's the role of companies, what's the role of enterprises, especially the big ones, okay, which are,
yeah,
Facebook turnover is probably higher than most, let's say, I think maybe most countries, world
yeah,
countries, okay, especially if you
right,
look at third world countries, and they have more citizens, okay, in Facebook than in
yeah,
many countries. So
right.
there is a level of responsibility.
The thing is that when you're thinking about Mark Zuckerberg, I think he's the most powerful person in the world, as I see it right now. And uh, for him, it makes sense that he could decide whatever he wants, right? Because he's so powerful. I don't know what's the shares that he holds in Facebook, but I still sleep at night when I think about his bank account. Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm not bothered. So when you think about this person who is more than just a CEO of a successful company, he has power, and
Yes.
still there's so much pressure on his decisions. He cannot really make a free decision because he thinks it's the morally right thing to do.
I don't know. Again, I don't know Mark
Yeah.
Zuckerberg personally, so
Me
we
too.
can we can argue that maybe he's under pressure from the shareholders. But I would argue that I think is more something motivate. There is an internal motivation. I think there is something to prove that he's right. And I think there is a level of self conviction that he already convinced himself that he's doing the right thing, that it's very, very hard to change it. Because, okay,
Yeah.
if I'm saying now that this is not the right thing to do, look at the 20, so what did I do over the last 20 years?
Yeah.
And so
Is it something that you see in successful CEOs that they get to vain? Like, I know things because I was successful till now, and I don't need to explain my decisions. I just do the decisions that I feel that they are right, and that's it. Because I've proven in the past that I'm a successful CEO.
Yes, for 100% sure. Yes, there is a... Generally, when we look at it again in research, we're talking about people who are power primed. Okay, as much as you have a feeling of power. Okay, and we can give names of CEO and leaders. We can give names of politicians without going into politics,
Yeah.
of people that they have convinced themselves that they are usually right. Sometimes they are correct. Okay, statistically they are correct. So the feeling of power allows you, gives you more freedom. Okay, you feel less inclined to consult with other people. Yeah, it's and I think what happens along the way is that you stop learning. Okay, and if we will talk again, we go back to innovation. I think innovation is about learning. It's about analyzing your decisions, learning what you did wrong or what you could have done better, and it allows you to innovate.
Right.
And I think there is a point, especially with leaders, and again, it goes back to the long term they are serving in a company sometimes, that you stop innovating and you stop learning because you got used to making a
Yeah.
decision, and you
Yeah.
feel very, very powerful.
Yeah, I think it's related to the growth mindset of saying, like, I'm still growing. Although I could be very successful and smart, I could be even smarter. And there are things that I still need to learn. And
Yes.
being humble is something that you seldom see in a CEO. Maybe in Israel it's more prominent. I'm not sure, but they're not humble usually.
Yeah, I'm not sure you can be humble. Okay, there is something about you. You need to be self confident. You have to be, in a way, extrovert, and you have to portray something. Especially if there is a big company and you have to sway your employees with you. You want to exhibit your leadership styles. Most of the time, you cannot be 100% humble.
Yeah,
And I think but you still can be, and the growth, you can still have a growth mindset without being 100% humble.
yeah,
Again, I don't know, but if I'm looking for the side, I think Jeff Bezos is more in a growth mindset, in a learning than Mark Zuckerberg. Again, I don't know both of them, and I haven't worked with either companies. Maybe
right.
Elon Musk, if you look at Tesla, and especially his new project, the Boring Company, SpaceX, you see there is some passion for learning, and again, it goes back with it corresponds with innovation, I think.
Yeah, I
But
totally agree.
he's not humble. Okay, Elon Musk is not a
No,
humble
no,
person.
no, no. He's not, for
Yeah,
sure.
and he will not
But
be
I don't know
probably.
when you're so rich, I don't know if you could be humble because everybody, you are so powerful. Everybody's looking uh, like from down to you, and you're
Yeah.
so impressive. And but I wanted to go back to your PhD. I know
Yes.
that you're studying a very special um, topic, and I know that you have lectures that you're doing, and one of them
Yes.
I think it's just don't do it. right? That's the name
Yes.
of the lecture. And you said that leaders are a bit reluctant to take this lecture, and because they want to do something and not think about it. So tell us more about that.
Yes. So thank you, first of all. And yes, my PhD, it started from a self-experience. I was, again, 13 years ago, something like that. I was appointed as a CEO of, let's say, a mid-level Israeli company. And in my second day on the job, my chief marketing officer comes to my room and tells me, I've just got an announcement that our biggest and fiercer competitors are going to initiate an advertisement campaign next week. And like a very, very good CEO or assertive CEO in his second day of the job,
In the
I told
second
her,
day.
okay, we have to do something. And sent her to work with the advertisement, with the ad agency and our people, and told her, okay, tomorrow morning we're going to have a meeting and we're going to discuss what are we going to do. And of course, they came in the next morning and they came with a few alternatives, and we made a decision. And in the end, we end up, again, if I'm looking at backwards, we end up just spending money on something we shouldn't have done. And what bothered me the most is that we haven't discussed the possibility of doing nothing.
Yeah.
And this is my PhD. This is what my PhD is about. Okay, is about when and why leaders don't even consider the possibility of doing nothing. And I'm not talking about choosing it. Most of the times, we should be active. We should be proactive. We should do things. We should promote things. We should innovate. We should take risks. This is the business world. But at least we have to consider doing nothing. I'll give you another example. For the last 2 years, we've had a small world crisis called COVID. I don't know if you've heard about.
Yeah, I did. I have to tell you a small story. When I just started with the show, it was in the beginning of COVID. And I always mentioned we're just in the middle of the COVID crisis, because if people hear it afterwards, and now I'm not saying anything, like, that's what we are.
But my wife keeps telling me that every few months she said, okay, when will it end? And I said, okay, it will end soon. She said, you keep promising that it will end soon. So but if you look at how governments responded to the COVID crisis, then different governments made different decisions and took different paths to do it, and some were more successful and some were less successful. But there's only one country who made let's say, a sound decision of doing nothing, which is Sweden. Okay, in Sweden there was a discussion, a government discussion, and they have decided that they're not going to fight against it. They did some protective measures, but generally they didn't do curfews, they didn't do lockdowns. There are the borders remained open most of the time, so they took different measures. And I was wondering how many countries have made have considered this option of doing nothing. And I think I know in Israel nobody talked about it. I know in many
Israel,
countries,
no way.
There was no discussion. And I think every country should have considered this option and discuss the implications. What will happen to the economy if we don't do it? What will happen to the people? What will be the mortality rate? Okay. And then make a decision. And my PhD is, I'm working with two very, very smart professors in Tel Aviv University. And we're trying to show the phenomenon that people do not consider what we call the do nothing option. And since they don't consider it, sometimes they will make a less optimal decision.
Yeah. First, I have to tell you that for me, I always was like in the side of Sweden. I'm always for the underdog. And I until now, I really hope that they're right. I really hope. But I think it's connected to, if we're talking about culture and Western culture, it's like, just do it, Nike. Like we need to do something, and what we're gonna do, we're gonna fight, we're gonna be smarter, we're gonna win this. It's like everything needs to be like it's a competition. Everything is something that you need to fight over, and especially in Israel, which are very, very proactive people, very like, and I think it's connected. And tell me what you think. I think it's connected because we are very anxious. We're a post-traumatic country. This is how I see it,
Yeah.
and it's like we're so anxious. We have to do something in order to feel control, whatever.
Yes. So first of all, yes, we are a very active country if we look at culturally. Okay, I could say not exactly the same, but let's say USA is also a very active country from different reasons. I think it comes from a different place. But yes, and again, I think it's in a way it's natural, because let's say you're a CEO of the company and you now need to make a decision. Okay, what do I pay you for? I pay you to make decisions. I pay you to do things. I pay you to push things forward and not to do nothing. Now, my argument is that doing nothing, again, it's a zero-sum game in the end. So to make a decision to do nothing in one place means you will have more resources to do in another place. Okay, we're not talking about doing nothing. Okay, let's close the company. Let's file chapter 11 and go bankrupt. Okay, it's not that.
And pay people just to sit there.
Yes,
And do
exactly.
nothing.
It doesn't. Yeah, exactly. It doesn't work like that. But if now in a company we're deciding not to invest in, let's say, project X, it means we have more resources. It will means we will have more money. It will mean we can turn the attention and the focus of our people to do other things. It means we'll have more time to innovate. It means a lot of things that if we decide to do nothing in some place, and it's a very, very hard decision to make. Okay, it's a very hard decision to make. First of all, to our, let's say, character, to look at ourselves, say, okay, we are going to do nothing. And it's also a very, very hard decision, and this is something I talk a lot about in my lectures, a very, very hard decision to convey to our employees, to our people. Okay, because what does it say about us as a company if we just doing nothing? Okay, if we are closing this project now, it's a very, very hard thing to say. Now, there are solutions. Okay, there are ways how to frame it correctly. There are ways how to let people understand how we use this, let's say, resources or time or efforts in other places. But again, it's not easy for leaders to make a decision to do nothing.
Yeah, I think I see it a lot with startups, that they need to know when to say no, because each client is a potential, and you need to decide what is a good potential and what is not. And because you have very scarce resources, and you want to have more clients, and you want to be more successful and have more money, sometimes you make a decision of, we're going to do this and this and this and all the types of clients, and we're going to develop everything that they're asking us, instead of seeing it strategically. Do you see that too?
Yeah, for sure. First of all, now there is a lot of talk. People are talking about FOMO, fear of missing out. So in social networks and everywhere. So I think it also happens. It happens a lot with entrepreneurs, because especially when you're in the beginning, then you have a lot of opportunities. You don't know which one will succeed. It's very, very, very hard to say no. And the fear of, okay, what happens if I just missed my opportunity to be the next Google or to be the next Facebook? So again, I feel it a lot. I'm working with a few entrepreneurs, and a lot of my role is to ask them, okay, what will happen if you don't do it? Okay, sometimes we do the role playing and tell them, okay, you will explain to me why you should do it, and I will argue with you why you shouldn't do it. And again, we will find that. And again, I think that in a lot of if I'm looking at globally, most times you will make a decision to do something. Okay, maybe 95% of the time you will make a decision to do nothing. But if you will consider the option of not doing, and you will understand why you are considering it, or what are the reasons, even your action decision, what to do, will be a better decision. Okay, you will make a more refined and more holistic, let's say, a more full decision, if you will consider the option of not doing.
Yeah. So if we're going back to the COVID crisis, how is it affecting decision making? How do you see business leaders changing the way that they do decisions, or what's the common mistake with decision making during this crisis?
I think what we've seen, and it was very, very interesting, is and you talked about growth mindset. So I think what you've seen is how important is the leader's mindset. There are leaders who understood immediately, okay, there is risk, but it's also an opportunity, and let's now take it and think about how we can make it as an opportunity. And if you look at other companies, you've seen leaders that they are just, okay, this is just the risk, this is just how we're going to suffer from it, okay, how it's going to be bad, and they were just bracing themselves, okay, so they prepared the company, and it was very, very nice to see it in a lot of aspects, how some leaders were very afraid of work from home, and some leaders embrace it very, very fast and say, okay, let's utilize it, let's make what's best from it, and let's allow people to work from home, because there are good things about it, there are bad things about it, but this is the situation. So, and how do we make it into an opportunity? So I think smart leaders were able to make fast decisions, forward-looking, say, okay, it will end at some point. Okay, we're in the middle of COVID, like you said.
Middle.
So it will end in some point, and well, it will end. I want my company to be better prepared for the future after, for the day after, and not just to suffer through the crisis. So I think it's yes, please.
Most leaders, I think, brace themselves. They decide not, like, let's wait till this wave passes us, and we'll do as we've done before, and just waiting for it to just go away. I think that most leaders did not innovate, as I see it, but maybe I'm wrong. But I think
I tend to agree with you. Okay, generally agree. I think, and again, it goes back to, like you said, we're in the middle of it. So I think there was a thinking, and I remember the beginning. Okay, in a couple of months, it will go away. We don't know how, but it will go away.
Hopefully,
and or once the vaccines come in, so it will go away. Now, generally, things don't go away. Okay. It goes with crises in company, different crises, political crises. It doesn't evaporate. It fades out. It gets better. We're getting better accustomed to that. But usually things don't go away. Okay, it's not today. It's like that. Tomorrow it doesn't exist. Okay, this is when children play hide and seek. Now I'm here, now I'm not. But in real life or in business, okay, again, if companies have problems, they don't go away.
Right.
I think, and I can understand leaders that in the first couple of months were mainly bracing themselves. I think companies that were able, or leaders that were able, after 2-3 months, say, okay, we were bracing ourselves, but it doesn't go away. Now let's start pushing forward. I think we are starting to see results of some companies that did it. And in some places, we don't see it. And I agree with you. It's,
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yes.
So we're almost done, and I have only one question from many others.
Please.
So
that was fast.
it is. Yeah. What's your number one tip for innovation leaders, or for leaders?
Wow. You have a lot of tough questions today.
Hey, that's why I called you. I don't know the answer.
I don't know as well. That's the nice thing about it is that nobody knows. So I think, and I talked about it in the beginning, I think leaders should trust their intuition more than they think they should. And if we look at research over the last few years, and there's a lot of very interesting research in the academy about intuition and the role of intuition, and how sometimes correct intuition is. So I think leaders should trust more their intuition.
Yeah.
And it's very, very hard. I worked with a company a few weeks ago, I remember, and they did what I hate the most, and it's called brainstorming. I hate brainstorming. Yes, brainstorming. We take 10 people, we sit them in the room and say, okay, now we have to think about new ideas, how to do that and that. and then people brainstorm. Now I think it's very, very artificial. And what happens is that the first two ideas are good, and then people just invent ideas that they don't believe in, and they don't think they are feasible, just to say that we did a brainstorming. And what research also shows us in the last, what we learned in the last few years, is that usually your first or second ideas are the best.
Really?
And yes, because it comes from your intuition, you believe in it. And if you're long enough, you have a good experience, you're long enough in a business, you already feel it, then generally you will be right. And the right thing to do would be to take your intuition, your first or second ideas, and to develop them, think them through, rationalize them, understand them. Now, maybe you will find out when you think about them that it was bullshit. Okay, it doesn't work. It's not a good idea. Okay, go back to the drawing board and rethink it. But usually it will be the right decision. So if I have to give leaders, and mainly the rational leaders, and I'm a super rational person, over rational, I can tell you. So my advice would be, go with your gut, go with your intuition more than you think that you should. It will usually prove itself.
But it reminds me of, like, first the change in what we expect from leaders to be. In the past it was more like hierarchical, now it's more flat. Now they need to have like a good connection with people, more soft skills, and intuition is a more soft skill than any other decision making tool. And I feel that intuition is very hard to trust for leaders because it's more spiritual, maybe, I don't know how to call it, but it's not as structured. Right? It doesn't have like all the numbers and then it sums up to the bottom line. And
I think
it's really hard to learn it, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure it's hard to learn it. Most people have it, and again, there are people who are more intuitive or their intuition is better. But I think, again, if you're a leader and if you're running or making decisions for a few years, you already learned a little bit more about yourself. But I think it goes back that if you're more rational and you trust the numbers and you go with the numbers, it goes back to, first of all, to feel more confident with your decision, which is okay. And it goes back that a lot of our decisions in our life, we're doing this decision mainly to minimize the regret we will feel if it will be the wrong decision. And again, go to our personal life, we do it all the time.
Sure.
Now, it's not a wrong mechanism because it's, people do it. We do it all the time. But as a leader of the company, you should be able, again, in the long term, to eliminate it. Okay. And you don't have, you must not make decision in order not to regret them. Okay. Because then you live to regret them, probably.
That's hard.
So it's a double-edged sword. But
I guess it's related, like to the way you manage things in general. And I feel that intuition is part of a movement for people in general to be less rational or not only cognitive, and to use the heart and the guts and to use all that you have as a person. And you see that leaders they need to learn it more than in the past, I guess. And we're talking about the HR capabilities, we're talking about the connections, we're talking about the way that you're really managing people and motivating them. And it relates to decision making too, I guess.
Yes. It also, as a leader, if we talked about soft skills, is the ability to give confidence to your subordinates. Again, if you're a C-level, then you are managing managers. Okay, they make many decisions every day. You need to give them confidence to make those decisions, and some of it is to trust their intuition. Okay, right. I remember as a person, it took me a lot of time, but now when I work with companies, a lot of time I ask them, okay, what's your intuition? And when they say, okay, so if that's your intuition, let's go with it. And sometimes they look at you shocked. Okay, what do you mean? I said, no, if that's your intuition, let's go with it. Now, again, if we need to look at the numbers to make sure the numbers doesn't show that we are 100% wrong, that's okay. But, numbers, especially if we talk about innovation or risk taking the long term, you make the numbers. Okay, it's not
the valuations, what we expect it to be.
It's an assumption. Anyhow, it's an assumption.
Right.
So you have to make sure that your assumption is not off the grid totally, But if
Yeah.
it's not, I say go with the flow, go with your intuition.
Yeah.
It will work out.
Yeah. So I want to thank you for your time. It's been such a pleasure. And I'm going to ask you, where could people hear more about what you're doing and contacting you?
So people can, first of all, thank you very much. I enjoyed our call, and it passed very, very fast. So I really enjoyed it, and it was very interesting. If people want to reach me out, so you can do it either through LinkedIn, just look for Raanan Keren in LinkedIn and you will find me, or to my website, www.raanankeren.com. And I'll be happy if you reach out, and I'll be happy to help you, whatever you want.
Yeah, it's been such a pleasure talking to you, and really interesting. And I'm sure that it makes people think, especially because you made some points that are most people don't think about when they're thinking about decision making. And to all of you change makers out there, thank you for joining us. And if you want to hear more about what I'm doing, go to invincibleinnovation.com, and I'll see you next week with another innovative, insightful talk.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
See ya. I'm Mazor Kario, and you've been listening to the Invincible Innovation Podcast. Make sure to visit our website, invincibleinnovation.com, where you can learn more about our programs and my book, Innovating Through Chaos. I'll be waiting for you next week in our next episode. Thank you for listening.